Okay, go.
Where are we and who did you do today?
So I'm Dan Heff Jr. and we're in Bologna in North Italy, and together the three of us built a deck that took a spot in top 64, and we were playing Mikanko. So I guess I'll talk about the cards and show you what we played. So 3 Ohime, this is totally standard, best card in your deck, you want to see it every hand. It starts every line in the deck by itself. For the Mikanko main deck monsters that aren't rituals, we played 2 Hare and 1 Hootie. I think this is the correct ratio. I think the boys would also agree with me. These cards are essentially bricks in hand. Like sometimes you can combo with them. Like this is a warrior, for example. But you never really need more than this because they all recur each other, and there's a small bit of recursion with other cards like Renaud as well. So then for the Gen Ken engine, we played 3 Gen, 2 Ken. I think this is the correct ratio. Gen is obviously infinitely better to draw than Ken, but sometimes you actually do want to Ken or Ken more than once in a game, so this is why you play 3 and 2 and not 3 and 1. I think it's fairly standard as well. For the level 1 fires, we played 2 Fireflint and 1 Renaud. Fireflint is maybe the better one to draw in your opening hand, but you also need Renaud as well for like further recursion later on, or if, for example, the opponent banishes your like Maya Washidori engrave with SP, which is like a pretty big issue because that's like 80% of your follow-up. Renaud is the only way to actually get that back. We played 2 Fireflints, sorry, because so number 1, it enables you to actually search with Isolde instead of not searching, because you go through all of your warriors in a single turn. So yeah. Not much more to say about it. Also, the Sinful Spoils engine is more live. Yeah, you need to use it more than once in a duel typically. We played Souls and Illusion. So as we said, Ohime is the best card in your deck. So theoretically, you also want to max out in copies of Preparation of Rites, because that also switches the Ohime, the best card in your deck. But the issue is that sometimes if you can open like multiples of Ohime and then Prep is essentially a dead card. Not a dead card, but it's not a great card, and it just becomes a discard for the Ohime. So playing these 2 cards, number 1 offers like additional extenders, which is like something the deck actually wants, and it also just gives additional value to Prep, so it just makes it an absolutely insane card. The only piece of running a hand trap I guess we played is 3 Nibiru. So there's not really much base in this deck. There's actually like quite a large engine requirement, but that's not an issue because the engine is quite good at going second anyway. So for the 1 slot we actually played, we wanted to play something extremely impactful. So we felt that into the greatest number of decks, Nibiru was probably the most impactful. As well as that, the Nibiru being level 11 means it's a 1 card tribute for Kagura, the ritual spell to summon Ohime. It comes up a lot. And as well, versus decks that make really big boards, tributing all their monsters for Nibiru to summon a really big token. That's usually like 4k, 5k, sometimes even 8 or 9k. It means that it's really easy to do a game by just summoning 2 Mikankos back, and they can't be targeted, so it's almost impossible to stop. Spoiled stuff, just played super standard, maxed out on the engine, just 1 Black Witch though. Not really much to say about it. Versus in a lot of decks, not this one, this engine is totally insane and does like a full combo by itself. But in this one, it's just like typically a nice extender. Maybe one of the best extenders, because the Black Witch can send equipped spells that are equipped to Mikankos as cost. So when you summon back things with like Fire Dance or someone from the deck with Arabesque, it's really easy to just send them, they're just free cards. So it helps you get into Isolde extremely easily.
Renaud. Sorry? Gets into Renaud, which is very important.
It's so important, Renaud Fireflint. The Mikanko equips 3 Arabesque, second best card in your deck. Always play 3, nothing really to say about it. Fire Dance, you need to play 1, probably never more than 2. A lot of combos, if you can search this, you can almost always make Acid Lock unless you get Nibiru or something. Rondo is Snatch Deal. They're very, very nice to equip to something with Ohime, and it's just an equip with a different name for Isolde.
We also talked about this going second, that when the moment it gets sent, the equipped monster goes to grave as well. And going second, you can equip to something. If you have access to Witch, you Witch it, and the monster gets sent to grave.
Totally valid. Quick play, and also Kagura, I guess I'll talk about these together. So basically, the only ways to actually summon Ohime in this deck are Quick Play or Kagura. The Quick Play is like the easiest way, obviously it doesn't require a tribute, but the issue is that during your opponent's end phase it gets bounced to hand. And usually you want to summon Ohime more than once in a duel, because number 1, it's one of your 3 monsters that has 0 attack that can actually do damage to something, and it also has an absolutely insane effect, which is to equip and equip to any target. So we needed to play a second way to summon Ohime. a lot of decks play 2 quick play, but we decided that Kagura is maybe just a better choice because of just how absolutely insane the card is. So what it does is that it's a ritual spell, but when you ritual summon a Mikanko monster, you can destroy cards in the field equal to the number of equipped spells with different names in the grave, and then burn for 1,000 for each card destroyed.
Non-targeting, all of it.
Non-targeting, and also this deck has a total passive buff of nobody understanding what his cards do except the 3 of us and maybe Simon He. So everyone just says yes to the activation, and then when they say yes, it's too late. Their entire board gets blown up. In one of my rounds against Rika, I blew up 4 cards and did 4k, took away his entire board and killed him. And the last one is Mei Washidori. It's one of the best cards in the deck easily. It's your Monster Reborn. It's pretty much the heart and soul of the deck, of your recursion. And it has the secret effect that at the end of the damage step, if any Mikanko monster battles, it bounces a card to hand. Maybe one of the best moments of the YCS was when my Labyrinth opponent in last round of day 1 attacked. He used his entire board 4 monsters to summon Unchained Abomination, like the link 4, and then attacked into my set Hare while I had this and Huli on board, and it just bounced the hand at the end of the damage step. And he scooped immediately. Other spells, we've got Tour Preparation of Rites, best card in the deck, gets a Hime and also gets Souls. The spicy one, I probably should have included it earlier, was Angelica's Ring. Some decks have played this, we didn't invent this tech, but we think it's definitely really good. Not only does it negate spell effects as you equip it with a Hime to Huli or something like that, it also is a time win condition. So you can destroy it and gain 500 life, and it forms one of the 3 time win conditions you have. So for that reason we decided to play it. I don't know if there's anything to be said about the card other than that.
100%. You can leave like some outs to Acid Golem, like Obsession and all these kind of cards in their hand, and just negate them in the ring as well. You can wait till they activate the card and chain a Hime.
Too easy sometimes. Rhoda. Rhoda, really solid starter and extender, but the issue is that Droll is sometimes an issue for the deck, so oftentimes I think we would side this out.
Both side when you think Droll is going to win, you take this out for sure.
So the final 6 spells in the deck are Triple Talons, Triple Trust. This is one of the stupidest cards they have ever printed, and I think up to this point it was actually quite fair until they printed Gen and Ken. If you play a deck with Gen and Ken, the fact that you can just normal summon again, draw 2, discard 1, and make your opponent play into Talons without them using a monster effect, look at their hand and rip it, is insane. You get full knowledge of their hand, you get to take their out to your board, you get to select the perfect board to make.
And it fits way too well into the deck. Like your whole plan is Acid Golem locking them, so you give them a monster. So this will rarely be actually setting a card. You'll always be adding a card to hand and activating it that turn as well.
Absolutely. And some people play 3 and 2. Absolutely incorrect. You want to see this in every single hand. 6 is mandatory.
There is a couple of decks that you don't want to acid lock, so you want to see their hand to see if it is one of those decks, especially game 1.
For sure. Last card we played, Mikanko Spirit Walk. This is your fallback. So the deck is probably the best deck in the format at playing going second. A lot of its cards are inherently quite good, like Arabesque, Huli, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times into full boards, you will just vomit your entire hand into the board, bait the key interruption that's preventing you getting to Huli, summon your Huli, search the trap, and set it. Huli Trap is almost unoutable for so many decks. It's really difficult to out. Certain decks like Rescue Ace only play like maybe 1 or 2 outs, like Access Code or Typhon. But this is where the trap would just take it. I know someone might say that they could just make SP and banish the trap, but typically what you'll do is you'll set 1 or 2 other bluffs with the trap. It means that the SP becomes a 33% chance or a 50% chance for it to actually work. So it becomes very difficult for them to win.
At that point, they can't attack you directly either if they have the SP banish it. So you're getting another turn.
Exactly.
Really will just come back. You summon it with the trap.
Do you have any other thoughts on the main deck, any of you guys?
No, I think, what was it, 44 cards in the end?
44 cards. Less 44. Vlad said he always stops at 44.
Yeah, well, that's what I went for.
I don't think that there'd be any changes to the main deck. I would consider a 3rd copy of Fireflint, but the deck is perfect. And then an extra deck. So Anima, it's your level 1 for making SP with your level 1 guys. We considered Inkribo, but Chris realized that Anima is just better, and he was right, because number 1, it has a good effect that actually removes something sometimes if they misplay, and 2, it's a dark spellcaster, right? So all of those are very relevant for Dark the Dark Charmer and Celine, the mighty magician, whatever. And then we've got 2 copies of SP Little Knight. This is one of the most absurd cards they printed in a very long time. Sometimes you use one as a link material, so you kind of have to play a second. Sometimes you go into both games. A lot of times on your end board when you acid lock them, you just make SP with your Geonator and the guy you take, and then you just banish your again, which means that they can't use level 7 rate monsters throughout your acid lock. But what that also means is that they're forced to switch Acid Golem to attack and attack over SP Little Knight before playing in the main phase 2 if they can play. So the card is essentially threatening Roar in a situation, which is really, really valuable considering your goal is to just kill them the following turn with Mikanko follow-up and damage. We played 2 copies of Isolde. In the beginning, I believed 1 copy was correct, but I was absolutely wrong. This card is mandatory too. There's so many situations where, because your opponent understands, not every opponent, but some opponents understand that your deck is an equipped deck. They think this card is really good, and they're right. So they'll try and interact with it. They'll try and destroy it. Sometimes they'll try and imperm the search effect. And if that happens, you just special summon another monster. Use the second one. It's absolutely nuts. Later on as well, making 1 and sending 1 equip for Renaud to add back Arabesque is a very, very strong play, and can get you into Ohime by bouncing with Arabesque, summoning, etc. Charmers, we played 2 Charmers. There's Dark and Hida. We were back and forth on these for a while. We knew this one was good, but we weren't sure if this one or the Light Charmer was good, or if any either. But just from testing, it seems that both of these are just absolutely insane. You kind of need them to go up into your access code lines a lot because they summon a monster and their spellcasters, which for Celine. So
I think the Dark is also just insane over the Light Charmer. Like the Light Charmer does technically get you follow up in your deck if they if you crash it. However, the Dark, we talked about how insane of a card SP is. SP's a Dark. You take their SP, you get a free 1.
Absolutely nuts. I wouldn't cut these. I think these are also pretty good. Geonator Transverser, come on. I mean, and this thing. Everyone kind of knows what this is now at this point. People have a tendency, including us at the start, to write the deck off as a gimmick acid lock deck, but in reality it's not. You don't actually make acid golem that often. And when you do, it's usually under the safety of knowing your entire hand of your opponent via talents, which makes it almost a guaranteed win. The Mikanko deck can play quite effectively without Acid Lock. Its board is actually incredibly strong, so don't underestimate the deck just because you think it's a gimmick deck, I would say. Played Celine, as I spoke about earlier. It's kind of like mandatory, helps you climb into Apo and Access Code. Smooths back Witch, sets cards pretty busted. Access Code, this is like your main way to kill when they don't have a monster because all your monsters have 0 attack and are required to attack into other monsters. And it's also nice to have a card that can remove multiple cards in the field. Last thing we played was Appaloosa. This is really good into a lot of decks over Acid Lock. Like I think Unchained was one example we went with, or Pearly. They don't
Chain
have
blind, yeah.
Yeah, or because like you usually give them Get and Ken, so they can't imperm Apo ever, which makes it like just extremely threatening. They usually have to play multiple cards into it to remove it. Quite strong. And then yeah, we just played Tifon Zeus. You might notice we're not playing any other XYZ we can actually make Zeus with, and that's because we're only really making this in couple matchups, like Pearly for example. When you take one of their Pearly monsters, you just whack a Zeus on it, clear the entire board. They really pretty much can never respond to it. Really, really strong. Maybe you can talk about Tifon and why it's useful.
I'm a big fan of Tifon. Like it outs a bunch of stuff, non-targeting, and I have to say I'm a fairly big proponent of if you throw enough shit at the wall, something will stick. And Typhon is one of those cards where you can throw your entire hand at them, and if it's not enough, you can, where you typically scoop, you can whack a Tifon on something and pray maybe that helps. Sometimes it works, oftentimes it doesn't, but sometimes it works. It can win you games that you otherwise shouldn't be winning. So yeah, I definitely think this is quite a mandatory card for most decks in the format.
I'd be inclined to agree. Last card we made was this. So initially you might look at this card and be like, oh, every Mikanko list is playing this. We actually didn't want to play this initially, and we were playing it for a very specific reason. So there's 3 time win conditions in the deck, Angelica's Ring, Kagura, and also the drop card. But the issue is that they all require essentially access to Ohime to play. So Costello came up with the idea that we should play Herald so that if you make Isolde, you can just send 1 for Arabesque for Renaud and Arabesque the Renaud. For level 3, summon the Renata, make this, and link it off to search the Ohime. It's not a 1-card combo, it's not a 2-card combo, but it does come up, and it gives you a way to win in time when otherwise you just wouldn't have one. So I think this was definitely the correct choice as well. So that's the extra deck, and then finally side deck. So we played One Dimension Barrier. So this was a 1-card slot that we thought was quite impactful into a lot of decks like Pearly, Tearlament, that sort of thing. And you could just set it off with Trust. So if you got trolled or something, you can just trust them and advise you a turn. I sided in a couple times today, played a couple of Pearlies, played a couple of Tears. I think maybe we could cut it, but I thought it was alright. DD Crow. What's to say about this card? So we initially put this card in because we were looking for cards for Unchained. We realised there was a big gap in our side deck for Unchained, which in hindsight might have been a mistake because Unchained is a terrible deck and you smack it every time. But it's also extremely good into Pearly and Tier, so this has wide coverage in the format. It's also quite good into Labyrinth because you can respond to traps with it, or banish key monsters like Kuklok, etc.
We played it over Bestials so that it hit Pearly, basically.
I think the other discussion we had over Bestials was this into Unchained, even though you clap them around and they have a tough time outing a Hoolie. One of the outs to Hoolie is the Blue Dog, and you can't Bestial the Blue Dog, you can DD Crow it.
So you actually just
Exactly.
DD Crow the Blue Dog and just say, out my Hoolie.
Which they often struggle to do. Okay, so then we have maybe the best card in the side deck is Triple Lava Golem. A lot of Mikanko decks play this, it's pretty much standard now at this point. Being able to tribute over 2 huge monsters is insane in so many matchups. Tearlament, Infernoble, if you ever get to it, and like other combo decks. And basically the interaction of targeting Lava Golem with Arabesque and bouncing it means you can Lava Golem 4 monsters. There's a very specific kill line where you summon Lava Golem in attack over 2 of their monsters. You summon Ohime and Hoolie, and you attack them in Lava Golem twice, so that does 6k. You also have the trap from Hoolie, so in the standby phase, your opponent will burn 1k for Lava Golem, putting them on 1000, and then you activate the trap to put that in the spell and trap and burn them for the final 1000. So enable kills, clears boards, it's just all around an absolutely unbelievable card in this deck.
You can also Arabesque bounce it back to your hand and tribute their field again.
3 Ashes. This is just a coverage hand trap, really good into a lot of decks, Unchained, insane into Labyrinth, very, very good into Rescue Ace. Because their deck is so good going second, I think our side deck philosophy was just we needed just cards, strong cards that would cover every matchup. We ended up making a big spreadsheet and deciding on the best cards based on our like ranking of them into every matchup. It's Ash, it doesn't really need much explanation. Then we played 3 Draw and Lockbird. This is a incredibly good card into the decks that our deck is the weakest into. I think our worst matchup was Infernoble by a country mile. It's almost impossible to beat them going second. But it's also really good into Pearly, Tearlament, Vanadium. So it's just a really strong coverage hand trap, and that will more often than not stop their turn. In the mirror as well, it's probably the best card. And then finally we decided to play 1 Duster and 1 Lightning Storm. So this in combination with Trust brings you up to 5 back row removal cards, which is the magic number. And we decided 1 wasn't enough because we wanted, if you draw Thrust in 1, like you can use the first one to bait the Barana, for example, in Rescue Ace, and you can use the second one to actually clear the board. So yeah, also there's other matchups like Stun, Runic Stun, or whatever that we wanted multiples in as well. Labyrinth also we brought this in against.
Rescue Ace was actually the main deck for it though, right?
Pretty much, yeah, I would say. So that's the full deck. I thought the deck did very well today, but it has a tendency to sometimes brick, as the boys saw. But yeah, do you have any closing comments?
Final thoughts, we'll do it again.
Absolutely. See you next year, Bologna. Huh?